Fucking everybody's like, I hope you're ready for more sadness. I hope you're ready for more depression. I hope you're all ready. I went through eating people. Okay? Okay? If you could go through eating people, I feel like you can pretty much do anything. Also, watching the death, not death, of one of your favorite characters already in the series, and you barely spend any time with them. But you know, whatever. She's totally not dead. She's totally alive because my brain tells me so. And as much as I rag on my brain, it never lies. Anyway, fuck these people. Also, fuck the dad. He doesn't give love. Fuck the mom. Fuck the grandparents. Fuck all of them. Hope they all die.
嘘つけそれお前はおい見ろよあれ
Don't be staring at us, you piece of garbage.
なんだってうわ
Listen, Yumiko had a little bit of a oof moment, but you know.
何あの髪型
What? Leave us alone. We're trying something different.
男みてえだよな
Yeah, that's what she was going for.
切っちゃったのかな自分でかなでもなんで
Dude, fuck these kids. They don't know.
あいつんちまた金なくなったんじゃないの
Get out of town.
まさか散髪代ぐらい出るだろそれ
You know how expensive haircuts are? Get out of here.
だよね
Can we just box cutter all these kids? When I showed up for school with a hairstyle more appropriate for a boy, my classmates' reaction was exactly what I expected. They made literally no effort to hide their amusement. I had gotten that far uneventfully, not giving them much to work with, so perhaps that was a bit of a recoil effect. Whatever the case, my rough bob cut became an easy target for mockery and speculation. Of course, there wasn't a single person there who showed any concern for me. Fuck no, they don't give a shit. Oh my god. My grandmother was simply at a loss for words for first. Not that the aghast expression on her face meant she was worried about me.
そんなみっともないことはこれっきりにしてちょうだい。わかりましたね。
Well, what? Everyone wants me to be a boy, so fuck. The one and only thing she was concerned about was how poorly my actions would appear in the eyes of society. I don't care.
ごめんなさい
You know, Yumiko, do whatever you want. Fuck these people.
まったく恥ずかしい。
I'm not even like... I'm mostly mad. You know what I mean? Mad that people like this exist. My grandmother mutters about shame and humiliation, averted her eyes, and disappeared into the house. And for a very long time, I sat alone in my room, utterly silent except for the voices of the cicadas.
お由美子嬢ちゃんどうなさったんですかその髪
Cut it off with the legendary box cutter. What's it to you?
ごめんなさい嬢ちゃんは何も悪くないのにおかわいそうに
Toshi-san was the only person who actually showed genuine concern. But it didn't make me feel any better to know that I'd made the kind old woman worry. More than anything else, her sorrowful face made me regret my rashness. I'd gotten carried away by my emotions and lashed out, but nothing changed. Nothing was going to change, ever. For the sake of the one or two people who acknowledged my existence, I decided not to repeat my mistake. Toshi-san's death came soon after. Oh, well, you know, that's fucking cool. Just get rid of the only person that actually cares about us. As the record-setting heat wave stretched on, the news was constantly occupied with stories of elderly people succumbing to heat stroke, and one day our neighbor, already past their 70th year, was among them.
すみませんがお帰りいただけませんか
Oh my god, can you fucking just...
そんなせめてお焼香だけでも由美子さんあなたも知ってるでしょう母が倒れた原因を
Bruh.
お給金が出るわけでもないのに、ねぎらいの言葉すらかけてもらえず、川本の家のために働き続けて。
Hey! Fuck you!
なんとも思わないんですか？
I thanked her. I mean, my douchebag ass family didn't, but I did. So that means I should be. Oh my god, I'm salty right now.
申し訳ないと思っています。だから。だったらもううちとは関わらないでください。もう川本の家とは一切の関係をなくしたいんです。地元でも変な噂が立ってますし。
The salt just grows in my heart.
おい早苗、それぐらいにしておきなさい。
はい、わかりました。それじゃこれで。
Wow.
お礼だけでも言いたかった。
Your world is supposed to grow larger as you grow up. Mine seemed to be only shrinking ever smaller. I'd lost Toshi-san, and with her the small place of refuge in our front door had vanished as well. The salt only grows in my soul. Just as I was on the verge of giving up, oh Jesus. Finally, at long last, a small ray of light broke through the wall of clouds. Oh, thank God.
お母さん、具合いいみたいね。
Why are you still visiting her? Get out, kill her. No, don't do that. That'd make it even crazier. I'd rather not have that on my heart. My mother was eating a mandarin orange, served as a treat after her meal. Her expression was placid as always.
今日はなんだか体も軽く感じるわ。
Not that I really give a fuck anymore. But for once, it didn't look like a mask was she'd plastered onto her face. The peace in her eyes seemed real. Something that flowed naturally to the surface from deep inside her. Our retreat to the quiet of the countryside hadn't done much at first. If anything, our family tensions had probably taken a toll on my mother, but after many years of peace, it seemed her mind was slowly beginning to regain its equilibrium. The recent downturn had given way to weeks of steady improvement. Once you can meet your own needs, it becomes possible to worry about the needs of others. My mother had begun to give my questions real responses for the first time in years.
お医者さんもいい兆しだっておっしゃってたし、来週からはお薬も減らしていくっていうことだったから、それで。
We'd never been able to discuss her treatment, but lately it had become a safe topic of conversation. Specifically, her progress was so promising that a discharge from the hospital was coming into view at long last.
来週の月曜日、おばあちゃんと一緒に先生にお話を聞くから、そこでいろいろと今後のことも聞いてくるわね。あと、由美子。何？お母さん。由美子、あのね。ごめんね。お母さん、ひどいこと言って。
Oh, you know, I don't. Forgiveness is steady street. Steady. You gotta wait a while. You know? You might say sorry now, but I don't fucking believe you.
あなたにこれだけしてもらっておいて、私、男の子の方がいいとか。
Okay, maybe I'm just quick to judge. Hold on there.
お母さん、いいから。ほら、みかん食べたから手が汚れてる。はい、ティッシュ。食べた皮片付けるわね。ありがとう。
You know what's real fucking crazy? It's raining outside while I'm playing this. I don't know how I feel about that. Why is it raining in the summer? Why does that even happen? We all know why that happens. It's fine.
いいのよ。お母さんは直すことに専念してくれればいいから。私そろそろ戻るね。また明日来るから。そう。ゆっくりしていけばいいのに。 また明日来るから。
I stood up and waved goodbye with a quavery smile. My mother was still sitting in profile, but I could tell she was smiling in return. Holding that image in my mind, I slipped quietly out of her room. I still... God damn. Our poor Yumiko, man. The moment I closed the door behind me, the world began to shimmer through a wall of tears.
お母さん、よかった。
I guess our mom does care? Or about us? Sort of? I mean, you could say sorry, but it's still like... What, do you mean that? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. I couldn't remember the last time my mother had shown that kind of concern for me. I don't know if she ever had. By the standard of a healthy parent-child relationship, I guess it was a insignificantly small thing. But for me, at that moment, those tentative words of compassion were enough to inspire overwhelming happiness. Happiness so strong that I couldn't help but break down in a sob.
よくなる。よくなってる。
I spoke the words again and again, as if to fix that fact, and more firmly in reality. Perhaps Toshi-san had taken pity on me and stopped by to heal my mother on her way to heaven. Maybe? Things were suddenly moving in such a positive direction that such thoughts seemed almost plausible. Well, the next week, my grandmother and I went to meet with Mom's physician for an update on her condition. Normally, I was the only one to attend these meetings, but the progress was significant enough that he asked Grandma to come in as well.
美佐子さんは間違いなく解放に向かっています。
Flipping through the papers in his hands, he gave us a detailed account of my mother's symptoms and current status. Not that I really needed to hear any of it. I already knew she was recovering. For someone who visited her literally every single goddamn day and my grandparents didn't give a fuck, it was impossible to miss the transformation.
それでもう娘は大丈夫なんでしょうか。
Once the doctor's explanation came to an end, my grandmother leaned forward, clinging to his arm as she spoke.
治療も順調に進んでおりますし、このまま退院の準備を始めてもいいでしょう。
Jesus, finally, years after being in a hospital. For years! Years! The moment those words left his mouth, my grandmother lowered her head so deeply I thought she might topple out of her chair and prostrate herself on the floor.
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます、先生。
I mean, I feel like it wasn't the doctor. I feel like it was more just sheer willpower or whatever the fuck. You know, psychological shit.
やめてください。頭をお上げになってください。
これで榊さんの家にも申し訳が立ちます。ありがとうございます。
Fucking get your shit out of here. Grandma continued to lavish her thanks on the doctor, as always doing her best to pretend that I wasn't even in the room. The huge. Mom's return to her husband would ensure that the Kawamoto business would continue receiving support from the Sakaki family. It was blatantly obvious from my grandmother's words that it was the sole reason for her gratitude. Yup. Don't even get... God damn it. To the woman who'd brought her into the world, my mother was nothing but a defective political tool. But that only strengthened my determination to take care of her. Once the doctor's explanation was over, my grandmother went straight home without even stopping by to see her daughter's face. 'Cause... salty about everything. I mean, maybe our mom's okay, but these grandparents need to get the fuck out. I heard her muttering the names of business partners to herself as she went. She was probably planning to hurry back to the house and inform them of the news. Ugh. Then again, I wasn't exactly eager to have her visit my mother with that sort of attitude, so if anything, her quick departure was
お
convenient.
母さん、来週退院が決まったわ。
Dropping a pile of magazines and books onto the shelf as usual, I spoke to my mother in a tone of sincere cheerfulness.
そう。じゃあ、おばあちゃんやおじいちゃんに迷惑をかけることもなくなるのね。
Yeah, not that they even give a fuck. They just want you to go back and, you know...
何よりこうやって由美子に来てもらわなくても大丈夫になるからそれが一番安心ね。
I mean, it wasn't that bad. I got leg day. That's something.
お母さん
Yumiko's got the working those legs out so hard from the walking.
私由美子にこうして負担をかけてるのが本当に申し訳なかったから。
My mother spoke those words with real remorse in her voice. Alright. But at that moment, the burden didn't seem so heavy. My mother's feelings were more than enough compassion.
カーテン開けてもらえるかしら。
Sure, why not? Just as requested, I pulled back the curtains from the window at my mom's side. Oh god. Light, it burns. A vault of blue stretched out beyond the panes of glass. It was the very picture of a summer sky. Compared to the heart of the city where the Skake house stood, the blue in that place seemed far more pure and vivid.
今日もいい天気ね。ここを出るときには一度屋上に上がって空を見てみたいわ。
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't want you near any roofs, okay? Toshi-san told me once that my mother had always enjoyed gazing at the sky. She didn't look for anything in particular, just tilted her head back and watched. And when people asked her why, she could never find an answer. Memories from the day when we first came to the town flashed into my mind. We'd walked hand in hand under a beautiful blue sky, but Mother's dull, lifeless eyes had never left the path below our feet. But she had finally remembered the sky. That could only mean she was on her way to recovery.
そうだね。ここを出るときには一緒に空を見ようね。ね。そうね。
Oh no, man. I get a bad feeling about this. About everything. It occurred to me that I didn't have a single memory of the two of us doing something like that together. I found myself very much looking forward to the small event that would accompany my mother's discharge from the hospital. Everything was moving in a positive direction. The stupidly optimistic scenario I had sketched out in my imagination was coming closer and closer to reality. Yeah, and wait, just you fucking wait, game. My mother's recovery produced clear changes in my own emotions. I'd barely spoken to anyone in weeks since Toshi-san's death, but I was slowly beginning to communicate with those around me. My grandparents still kept their distance because they're fuckheads, but if I approached them myself using my mother as a pretext, I could at least get them to have a conversation with me. Mom's recovery was their primary objective, after all. They couldn't avoid hearing me out if I brought it up. Watching my grandparents interact with me despite obvious reluctance, I felt as though I'd achieved a small but significant rebellion against the people who'd spent years ignoring my very existence. I'm right here. I'm in an important position, more than anything else. That sense of meaning gave me strength. In school, the others still rejected my very existence because they're also fuckheads. But that doesn't matter much to me anymore. I would be returning to the Skake household once my mother recovered. This hollow school life would be over soon enough. The end was in sight. That suffocating feeling of entrapment was gone. No matter what they said about me, no matter how they laughed, it rolled off me harmlessly. Like water when it splashes across. Oh my god, that... I don't like that I talked about water and the water popped up and rain. Oh god, it's raining outside, raining in the game. Oh Jesus, that means it's only gonna be bad and my theory's gonna be true! I think she's gonna jump off the roof. That's my theory. If we go to that fucking roof, she looks up at the sky, and it's raining, she's gonna jump off the roof. That's literally all I'm thinking about right now. But then again, why would you go up to the roof and look up at the... Okay, hold on, let's just keep going. 3 days after my mother was scheduled to leave the hospital, I was hurrying to school through the rain. The drizzle that had begun a little after midnight was just picking up into a steady heavy rain as I left the house. My umbrella wasn't enough to catch it all. Okay, it's 3 days before, so we're good. We're good for now. Pausing for a moment, I glanced up at the angry sky beyond the edge of my umbrella. It was covered in deep black clouds from the horizon to horizon, without so much as a patch of clear sky in
お
between.
母さん憂鬱だろうな
Since our conversation the other day, Mom had begun to spend a lot of time looking out her window. That was nice enough when the weather was clear, but staring up at a menacing sky like that might inspire a bit of gloominess, just as her feelings were finally starting to take an upward swing. Hey, I like the look of the sky and when it's raining and shit. Feels nice. I'd have to hurry to the hospital and cheer Mom up as soon as school was over. With that thought, I began to walk again. And just as I reached the intersection between the road and the school, to the school and the main street leading to the station, a familiar face appeared from around the corner.
どうもどうも。由美子ちゃん、久しぶりだね。元気してた？
Can you like get off my ass real quick?
おじさん
We already told you off. But it wasn't a face I was eager to see. I instantly recognized the tabloid reporter who had once wheeled me into becoming a source for an article that mixed fragments of truth with innuendo and lies. Standing under a large jet black umbrella that seemed to mirror the rain clouds above, he looked over me with a faint smile on his face.
いやー、しばらく見ないうちに可愛くなったね。お母さん譲りかな？それともお父さんに似たのかな？
Alright, you creeper. Go, just take a few steps back. We got a box cutter. I ain't afraid to stab. Just, keep... His words seem to have grown more greasier and more presumptuous than before. Yeah, he's being real skeevy. When I walked past him silently, the reporter fell easily in beside me, keeping pace as though I invited him to follow.
ちょっと聞きたいことがあってね。またここに来るようになったんだけど、そこの喫茶店で話とか聞かせてくれないかな？
Listen, get off, go away, leave me alone.
以前にも言いましたよね私はあなたにお話しするようなことは一切ありません
そんな。君のお父さんのことじゃないか。話すことなんかたくさんあると思うんだけどな。
Yeah, I'm sure there is plenty of shit we could talk about. Not with you, though. Fuck you.
ありません父とはもう何年も会っていないんです
Also that's also a thing. It was incredibly unpleasant to have this man bring up this topic now. The Skage house was the invisible mass around which we all orbited. I knew my current lifestyle was possible only because of his financial support, but sometimes I couldn't help feeling a powerful burst of resentment toward the father I barely knew. In particular, when people carelessly assumed we must have that kind of relationship.
もういいですから付きまとわないでください変な噂を立てられるので
And by that kind, I meant some kind of relationship. Also, no rumors, please. Stopping briefly, I spat out the clearest possible rejection, then quickly turned around to leave. I couldn't allow trouble of this sort to arrive so soon before my mom was to leave the hospital. There was no telling how speaking to this man for even the briefest of moments might come back to haunt me.
本当にそうなのかな？
What do you mean? Well, the reporter, no longer trying to follow, called out to me from behind. His words were suggestive, his tone unusually serious. I came to a halt despite myself.
だから何なんですか一体
Yeah, what the fuck you mean, boy? Rationally, I understand it would have been the same either way. I know that it wasn't the cause of cause of what would follow. But still, somewhere deep down inside, I can't help believing everything would have been different if only I had walked away.
そうもいかないんだよ。だってこの話、君に弟ができたってことなんだからね。
I mean, I could. Because, I mean, I don't, you know. If that's true, then it's fucked up that my dad's also a sleazy dickbag, again, who cheats on his wife, but, you know, whatever. I mean, I don't know my little brother. I don't fucking care. Well. I mean, we don't know if that's even true or not, right? Like, it's just some sleazy ass, skeevy fucking reporter man. Like, why would you even take anything what he says to heart? Honestly, I get it, but still. What? But if it is true, your dad's a shitbag. More so than he already is, in my mind. In my fucking mind. Yumiko, stop it. Stop it! When I turned back to face him, the man was wiping at his rain-damp forehead with a knowing smirk on his face.
これに載ってるよ。もっとも、由美子ちゃんが読むような雑誌じゃないけどね。
The reporter reached out and presented me with a magazine already open to a certain article. Practically grabbing it from his hands, I ran my eyes frantically across the page. And the moment I saw the headline, the blood in my veins seemed to freeze solid. Well, that, East Beach Express President Sakaki Michiaki's illegitimate child. Long-awaited son born to a mistress. Uh-huh. Yep, there it is. I mean, who knows? I might just be tabloid shit. Just fucking... Bold sans serif headlines emphasized by sharp decorative flourishes. Below, the face of the man I hadn't seen in a while lined up with the portrait of his unfamiliar partner. Paragraphs full of vicious words that I could barely stand to read, and at the very end, one sentence that plunged me below even despair. As I had doubted my ears in the hospital room weeks before, this time I doubted my eyes. Uh-huh. Currently arranging for a divorce from his wife. Ah, then that means he won't give a shit about us even more. Or any, financial shits with us. Ah, fuck. Well, those few brief words buried in the final paragraph, as if they were the most trivial thing in the world, hit me with the force of a hurricane. I'd heard the rumors. I more or less understood that father was that sort of person. Uh-huh. There was no worse way to have those suspicions confirmed. Why? Why now, when my mother was recuperating in the hospital? Why now, when she was finally getting better? Was this article even true? Many thoughts swirled chaotically through my head. My hands trembled and lost their hold on the hateful piece of paper.
ちょっと落とさないでよ。これだって一応資料なんだからさ。
The magazine fell to the wet pavement with a slap as it hit the ground. The pages that had been folded back flipped around, revealing the cover. And as if to turn a dagger into my wound, one final piece of information was revealed to me. A tasteful work from a well-known painter, behind a number of carefully arranged headlines in a firm serif typeface. A weekly magazine, but one that clearly distinguished itself from the tabloids and gossip rags. A magazine of some credibility. Ah, fuck! A magazine my mother asked for every week! Ah, fuck.
というわけで、ぜひこの件について、お姉ちゃんとしてコメントを聞きたいんだけど、時間を。
What thoughts would I have other than my dad's a fucking piece of shit, and I don't give a shit about my brother, and fuck this mistress, and salt, sadness, and salt. That's all this is.
ちょっと、おい!
Charging off the sidewalk that ran along the Prefectural Highway, I sprinted all out along a farm road, slanting diagonally away through fields of green. The path didn't turn toward my school, so it offered an ever so slightly more direct route. But it was only a farm road. In places, it hadn't even been paved. It was an extremely difficult course to run on a sunny, rainy day. Oh, it's all over. It'd be all over, and then then what I say might actually happen. Oh my god. Brain, don't do this to me. I've been right with theories a lot in the past, but please. But I didn't have the luxury of worrying about that right at the moment. I needed to get to the hospital as soon as I possibly could. I needed to stop my mom. With the recent improvement in her condition, Mom had started to leave her room and visit the hospital store to purchase her own books and magazines. If the nurses were still delivering them with the mail, there was at least a chance they'd check for articles that might upset her. But it was hard to imagine the clerks in the shop would have been told to do the same. Dude, that... Ugh. Halfway there, I can no longer muster the effort to keep my umbrella upright above me. I let the rain strike me and focus all my attention on running. Water went flying with every heavy stride, slapping against my legs, soaking my skirt. The small ember of satisfaction warming my chest only minutes before had been smothered completely out of existence. I was cold to my very core. Ugh. It's too late. It's already done so.
ちょっと廊下を走らないでください。
Fuck you. I'm wet and running.
すみません。
I got shit to do. My momentum barely slowed after arriving at the hospital. I understood perfectly well that running in the hallways was off limits, but the rules I'd always obeyed mattered less than reaching my destination even a moment sooner. Turning a corner on the third floor, I finally entered the wing reserved for private rooms. A moment later, my feet came to an abrupt halt. There was something unusual going on in front of the familiar door. For a moment, I was simply bewildered. 3 strange men in expensive suits were standing just outside my mother's room, talking to each other, just on the verge of entering. A vague but powerful sense of dread ran through my body like a jolt of electricity. Get the fuck out of here! I shouted angrily as I approached. The man who'd been reaching for the door hesitated. Before I could continue, the white-haired man at the head of the little group preempted me with a question.
失礼ですが、どちら様ですか?
Sakaki Yumiko, and I'm precious.
この病室の榊美佐子の娘です。あなたたちこそ誰なんですか？母に何のご用ですか？
Unperturbed by my fierce attitude, the white-haired man answered with a calm smile.
ああ、あなたが由美子さんですね。申し遅れました。私、榊家の顧問弁護士をしております。津田と申します。
Oh, well, this is definitely a feels bad man.
顧問弁護士。
ええ。この度はお母様の件でちょっとお話がございまして立ち寄らせていただきました。
Say no. Say she's out of the...
お母様はいらっしゃいますか?
No, get out. Don't even. The magazine article I'd read minutes before flashed vividly before my eyes. Currently arranging for divorce. Uh-huh. In a heartbeat, my mind connected those words to this lawyer's sudden arrival. Damn.
Huh?
Just straight up, I ain't letting you see her.
父を離婚させるために来たのでしょ。今母は病気なんです。そんな話なんかしたらどうなるかわかるでしょ。
由美子さん、それは誤解です。私たちはその件ではなく、今後のお二人のことについて。
I don't. I mean, you said a minor thing they were talking about.
嘘！さっき雑誌で見たわ。全部知ってるんだから。
The man's composed face distorted into a scowl at the word magazine. He must have been trying to reach us before that information did. Yep.
仕方ないな。おい。
Uh-oh.
はい。
Uh-oh. No, hey! With a small movement of the lawyer's hand, the 2 men who'd been hanging back moved quickly toward me. Hey! Take out the box cutter, Yumiko. We gotta do this. No! Get back! They had me physically subdued before I could even register surprise. Fuck. One man had slipped behind me and caught my arms in a firm full Nelson. The other stood in front of me like a wall, eliminating any chance of escape. Well, that's fucked. Yumiko, just start going crazy. Just start punching. Wildly I screamed desperately, but they weren't the sort of people to flinch at the cries of a young woman. Wait, hold on! What about the doctors? doctors and the nurses and shit. What is this? I mean, I guess they work for the Skaki family, so it doesn't really matter. The private wing was never a busy place. Ah, fuck. Today it was entirely empty, and with the heavy rain drumming down outside, I doubt anyone else in the building would hear my voice. And, of course, against the strength of 2 full-grown adults, a child like myself was completely powerless.
しばらくおとなしくしていてください。
If we got that box cutter out, you'd all be done so. The lawyer's voice had grown cold. It was the all too familiar voice of an adult.
榊美佐子さん、弁護士の津田と申します。お話があってまいりました。失礼しますよ。
Yeah, his words were extremely polite. If anything, that made them all the more frightening. Ignoring my tear-choked plea, he pushed open the door into my mother's hospital room. What if she already found out, though? Oh, she already found out. Oh, no! I was the first to react. The bed sitting by the window, which had always been occupied before, was now empty.
うざいか。まあいい。待たせてもらうこととしよう。
No, she already found out? And I might be right? In contrast to the perpetually calm lawyer, I was filled with a profound sense of unease. The doctors always made their rounds at this time of day. None of the patients were allowed to move around freely, much less my mother. They'd given her a normal pace for the sake of camouflage, but by all rights she belonged in a room with bars on the window. Normally, it wouldn't be unusual to move a patient only 3 days from discharge back into the hospital's general ward, but my mother's condition was still delicate. Her physician had decided to handle everything cautiously until the very end. Oh boy, here it comes. It just wasn't possible that Mom had simply stepped out at this time of day.
何ですか、あなたたちは。
Who the fuck are you losers? The doctor had arrived for his daily rounds. For a moment, he simply stared at the bizarre scene inside the room with confusion in his eyes. Still grabbed, by the way. Can you tell him to let go of me? Before the lawyer could even stand to offer a greeting, I yelped out from the corner where the men had deposited me. Oh, okay, I'm good.
ついさっきまでここにいたと報告を受けていたんですが、そうだろう。
He turned to the nurse at his side for confirmation, a hint of alarm in his voice. Yeah, so to have all this happen, it had to have only been like a few minutes, right? For her to figure this out, leave before these fucks even showed up. Oh god, no!
はい、確認しましたのでそう伝えましたが。
And then she went to the roof! And it's over! Nothing good happens when it rains! The startled nurse looks around the room as if expecting to find my mother hiding in the corner. It was all too much for me to process. Everything was moving forward smoothly only an hour ago, but now we were derailed, hurling rapidly away into darkness and confusion. All of our painstaking work falling apart around us. I had to look for my mother. I had to keep her from finding out about that article. Too late. I had to get out of this room, away from these people. Countless thoughts stamped wildly throughout my head. Did I say stamped? I meant stampeded. But there was just one thing that seemed clear to me. I couldn't just sit here waiting. Before anything else, I had to find Mom. And all of a sudden, I remembered. Here it comes.
ここを出るときには一度屋上に上がって空を見てみたいわ。
There it is. Oh, yup. Oh, man, I already know. Fuck. Shit. The words rang out so clearly in my ears that for a moment I thought she was really there speaking to me. Pushing my way around the man who'd been holding me in check, punching him in the penis before I leave, I slid past the doctor and dashed out onto the deserted hallway.
こら、待ちなさい。
I'm gonna go find my mom, and this... Oh, it's over. I heard voices from behind. I ignored them. Oh, God. I didn't have any real proof, but there was nothing else for me to go on, so I had no choice but to cling to my intuition. Taking the stairs 2 at a time, I headed for the very top of the building. Oh, Lord. By the time I managed to struggle all the way to the rooftop, my breath was coming in quick, ragged gasps, and my legs were burning beneath me. I felt about ready to collapse. After all, I'd sprinted from my house to the hospital, and then from Mom's room up to the roof, with barely any pause in between. I bet my exhaustion was the last thing on my mind. I threw myself against the door with the last of my momentum, swinging it open. Oh. Here comes the badness. Alone in the dark, engulfed by the roar of the rainstorm, I screamed for my mother. I mean, we got bars right here, it's fine. It was coming down so hard now that mist was rising from the bare concrete. Even seeing across the rooftop was a challenge. Naturally enough, given the weather, I couldn't make out any sign of human presence. Is it too late? But just as I muttered the words, a white shadow stirred in the darkness. It was a human being, a woman dressed in the white clothes of a patient, standing in the rain. From her height and length of her hair, I realized that at once it was my mother. I splashed through the puddles at her side. She was staring blankly up in the sky, battered by the powerful rain. Her entire body was utterly soaked. I grabbed my mother by the shoulder and shook her frantically, trying to catch her attention. But her eyes were fixed on the sky. She didn't so much as budge. It was obvious at a glance that something was terribly wrong. Halfway through the sentence, I noticed something lying on the ground at the very edge of my peripheral vision. It was flapping around in the wind. I had the feeling I'd seen it before. Not that long ago, in fact. That cover, that tasteful painting, the work of a well-known artist, those headlines set in a restrained, professional font. The magazine cover of that article was lying at my mother's feet. My hand slipped off her shoulder and I staggered backward, barely staying on my feet. Why had this happen? Why did everything have to fall apart just when we were finally starting to move forward? Why was my mother standing there soaking wet? Why did she have that blank expression on her face? There's a lot, you know why. My many questions bubbled to the surface of my mind. None of them had answers. They just sat there, suspended in my mind, stagnating until they putrefied into a pool of solid sludge. My mother fixed her lifeless eyes on mine. I was startled. It was the first time for as long as I could remember that my mother had looked me straight in the face. Here comes more badness. But that was without a doubt the worst possible way for that chain to be broken. What? There was no light in Mom's eyes. The words she spoke posed a question, but there was nothing like actual curiosity behind them. It was the voice of a machine. I wanted desperately to convince myself she was joking, but no matter how I tried, I couldn't make myself believe it. The evidence before my eyes was simply too powerful. My mom's face was paler than white, and at the center of her wide eyes there were two bottomless dark wells where her pupils had been. Those tiny spots of black seemed more vast and more profound than the black sky stretching out endlessly above us. I was standing on the edge of an abyss, and I was afraid. It felt as though I might fall into those pools of darkness and disappear. But I couldn't stop staring. I couldn't avert my eyes from the whole thing that was trying to swallow me whole. After all, she was the only person left in the world who'd ever acknowledge my existence. I called out to her, praying the word might pull her back from across the chasm that separated us. But it was too wide. My voice was too weak. I was too weak. I shrunk away just one step. My heel slid backward across the wet roof. Oh, well. And then for a moment it felt as though my body was floating. Disoriented by a sharp impact on my backside, I didn't realize that I'd been pushed out of the way until I saw the doctor moving past me.
早く他の患者に見つからないようにベッドへ。
はい。
Well, at least my theory's not good. Okay, thank God. As I sat stunned on the wet concrete, they took my vacant-eyed mother in arms. They were carrying her off like an oversized doll, away from me to someplace I didn't know. Pushing myself up off the ground, screaming, I ran toward her. I didn't make it 3 steps before another nurse caught me in her arms.
大丈夫よ、由美子さん。大丈夫だから。いや、どこに連れて行くの。やめて。
Rising above the pattering of the black rain, a baleful roar filled the air, crawling up from the depths of the earth, demolishing everything in its path. That sound, like a massive boulder tumbling relentlessly across the world, merged with the scene before my eyes and engraved itself violently into my heart. I tried to follow with my eyes as they carried her away. I strangled out one final cry. Oh. In response, the world filled with intense light as though a dozen cameras had flashed at once. For a moment, I was dazzled. Okay, we're good. And by the time my vision returned to normal, there was nothing left to see. No, not quite nothing. On that otherwise empty roof, one waterlogged magazine remained. It was dissolving by now, paper melting away, ink blurring into illegibility. But my memory of the truth it contained wouldn't disappear so easily. My broken mother was gone. The doctor who smiled and told me she would be leaving the hospital was gone. I was absolutely alone. I crumbled where I stood. Oh. My knees hit the ground first, then my hands, then my face. The wet concrete was pleasantly cold against my cheek. Maybe if I lay here long enough, I would melt away and disappear, just like that magazine. The ground was cold, but my body was hot. I'd used up everything I had. I was empty. I'd given up on the very idea of moving. The merciless rain continued to pour down on me. Jet black rain, even though it wasn't night. The vicious dark water pooled around me, creeping up on my body as if to swallow me whole. So, one thing's good. My theory didn't happen. I just always assume the worst. But still, what happened, pretty fucked up. Okay, hold on. How can people defend her dad, by the way? How? Like, why? Don't people understand that he's, like, yeah, I get it. He's a workaholic. I don't care. Like, my dad was a workaholic. I barely even saw my dad when growing up, but whenever I did see him, he still gave me that love and affection that that you give to a child. Because, and then not only that, then her fucking dad goes and fucks some other person, cheats on his wife, and just how can you defend this man? Maybe it is all wrong, maybe, but the divorce clearly wasn't. I don't know. It's just apparently all like a quote adults or parents in this fucking universe are trash. Except Amane's, I guess. I'm done. I'm leaving. Come back next time.